Let's dive right into this explainer and uncover how a genuinely ancient idea transformed into one of humanity's absolute greatest aviation achievements. I mean, think about it. Just about 150 years ago, the mere idea of air travel was seen as total madness. If you told someone you could fly, they'd have called you absolutely crazy. Yet, history is full of these crazy ideas that completely reshaped our world. Today, we look up at the sky and see massive machines that turn a journey of days into just a matter of hours.
Now, when we think of the dawn of flight, your mind probably jumps straight to the Wright brothers in 1903, right? But what if I told you the concept of vertical flight actually predates the airplane by millennia? It's a fascinating reality, and it kind of changes how we view the whole history of aviation.
So, the helicopter story isn't just a century old. We're talking about a massive 2,400-year saga. It's this brilliant story anchored by relentless human perseverance against the laws of physics. It's packed with repeated failures, some incredibly quirky inventions, and an ultimate world-changing triumph that took immense patience from generations of thinkers.
In today's explainer, we're going to cover 6 main steps. 1. A 2,400-year-old toy. 2. Early designs. 3. Sikorsky's breakthrough. 4. How helicopters actually fly. 5. The helicopter versus the airplane. And 6. India's very first helicopter.
Section 1. 2,400-year-old toy, the bamboo Ferengi. Let's start at the very beginning, way before modern engines were even a thought.
This is just an incredible story of human perseverance. Way back in 400 BC in China, there was this popular children's toy made of bamboo called a Ferengi. Kids would just rub it rapidly between their palms, and the spinning wings would carry it up into the air. Amazingly, the very idea of vertical flight traveled from these little children's toys along the Silk Route all the way to Europe. It actually inspired none other than Leonardo da Vinci to sketch designs for spiral flying machines 600 years ago. But, humanity faced a massive roadblock here. Engines didn't exist yet, and physics couldn't really be conquered without them. From the Russian scientist Mikhail Lomonosov testing opposing propellers in the 1750s, to brave inventors actually launching 39-foot steam-powered models in 1878, innovators just couldn't crack the sheer weight required to lift a craft vertically. And that left the door wide open for the Wright brothers to temporarily steal the aviation spotlight in 1903 with their flat-winged airplane.
Section 2. Early designs, a trail of failures. So while airplanes were successfully taking to the skies, they had one major undeniable drawback. They needed massive, long runways. Inventors kept dreaming of a machine that could lift off straight up from exactly where it stood. But man, it wasn't an easy path.
A lot of early 20th century attempts were driven by, sheer madness and a ton of trial and error. We're literally talking about inventors trying to build machines that flapped their wings exactly like a bird. Others tried attaching wings to giant air balloons, which, as you can guess, usually just resulted in the craft drifting sideways and crashing instead of going straight up. But then, the first real glimmer of hope arrived in 1907. A French engineer named Paul Cornu built a helicopter powered by a fuel-driven internal combustion engine instead of heavy steam. And get this, he used actual bicycle wheels in his design. It wobbled terribly, but it managed to hover about 1 foot off the ground for 30 whole seconds. Because of that 30-second flight, some scientists consider Cornu the true father of the helicopter. Still, throughout the 1920s, prototypes with 2, 4, or even more wings continued to fail simply because they couldn't stay stable in the air.
Moving on to Section 3. Sikorsky's breakthrough, the VS-300 flight. After decades of these unstable, spinning disasters and googly-eyed prototypes, one guy finally cracked the code to controlled vertical flight. On September 14, 1939, in Stratford, America, a Russian-born scientist named Igor Sikorsky piloted his creation, the VS-300. It was a really short flight, just a few minutes, but for Sikorsky, who had been totally obsessed with helicopters for 40 years, he knew he had finally solved the giant puzzle. He realized the secret was in the rotors. He added a main rotor blade set at a slight angle and, most importantly, he added a crucial tail support rotor. This tail rotor was the absolute game changer. It totally defeated the physics problem that had stumped Da Vinci and countless others by stopping the body of the helicopter from violently spinning out of control in the opposite direction of the main blade. By May 1940, he had added a pilot cabin and was making completely stable, successful flights, forever earning him the title of the true inventor of the modern helicopter.
And the immediate impact of this? Absolutely staggering. The world was soon engulfed in the Second World War. Seeing the incredible potential of a craft that could take off and land completely vertically, hover in place, and turn on a dime, the American military ordered mass production of Sikorsky's new R-4 model. During the war, over 400 of these helicopters were produced and heavily utilized by the United States Air Force, specifically for critical search and rescue missions to save lost and wounded personnel. Now, while there have obviously been countless upgrades since World War II, nearly every single helicopter in the sky today is still based on Sikorsky's fundamental design. His foundational work literally paved the way for today's absolute beasts of the sky. Just to put this into perspective, modern helicopters can fly up to 2,000 kilometers on a single journey. They can hit staggering top speeds of 500 kilometers per hour, and the largest among them, they can lift an astonishing 56 tons of weight. Section 4. How helicopters fly, the physics of flight. Okay, so we know they are wildly powerful. But how exactly do these massive, heavy machines defy gravity without the traditional flat wings that airplanes use to glide on? It really all boils down to physics, specifically Newton's third law of motion, which tells us that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The large main blades in the center are angled, and they spin incredibly fast, slicing right through the air and aggressively pushing it downward. Because they push the air down with such immense force, the air reacts by pushing back up against the blades with equal force. And that upward thrust is exactly what lifts the entire aircraft into the sky. But remember that pesky spinning problem early inventors had? Well, that's where the small blades on the tail come in. They push air horizontally to counteract the torque of those main rotors. This maintains the helicopter's balance and allows the pilot to purposefully turn the craft or make it spin in a completely controlled circle.
Section 5. Helicopter versus airplane, head-to-head. Now that we deeply understand the mechanics and the history, let's pit the helicopter against the traditional airplane to see which is actually the more versatile flying machine. So, the crucial point here is survival and utility. Think about it. What happens if the engine dies mid-flight? In an airplane, without a long, flat runway to glide onto, you're at a very high risk of a severe crash. But in a helicopter, you actually have this brilliant physics trick called auto-rotation. Even if the engine stops, the main rotor blades don't just instantly freeze up. They continue to spin freely as the air flows up through them during the fall. It acts almost like a parachute, allowing for a slow, controlled, and surprisingly safe descent back to the ground. Then there's maneuverability. Airplanes require wide turns and constant forward motion just to stay airborne. Helicopters? They can hover completely still, turn in place, and even fly backward. Because they only need a small, flat space like a helipad or, a jungle clearing, a city street, or a rooftop, they are vastly superior for short urban trips, cargo deliveries in tight spots, rescuing people from mountains, and dropping water on raging forest fires.
Section 6. India's first helicopter, arrival in Mumbai. To bring this fascinating global journey spanning from ancient China all the way to 20th century America, back home, let's look at when this revolutionary machine finally arrived in India.
Following independence, the Indian government and a few individuals had airplanes. In fact, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru used airplanes extensively to travel across the country for India's very first election campaigns. But the helicopter? That took a bit longer. Exactly 7 years after independence, on March 19, 1954, India's first helicopter arrived in Mumbai. And fittingly, it was built by the company of the original inventor himself. The Indian Air Force imported a Sikorsky S-55. It was a hugely momentous occasion, and Prime Minister Nehru himself eventually traveled in this very machine. Today, that exact piece of aviation history sits safely preserved in an Indian military museum.
From a spinning bamboo toy to a 56-ton modern marvel, it has genuinely been an incredible 2,400-year evolution. Having traced this amazing journey together today, I just have to ask you, which of these magnificent flying machines do you prefer for travel? The nimble, hover-capable helicopter or the high-soaring airplane? And what was your very first time taking to the skies like? Think about it and let us know. Keep seeking structured knowledge, and we'll see you in the next explainer.